Hello, and welcome to Tales for Life. In each episode of this podcast, we'll explore a folk or fairy tale from a different culture or region and discover the life lessons, values, and morals they offer that we can use today. Join me on the journey through the magical and meaningful world of folk and fairy tales. Hello and welcome once again to Tales for Life, the podcast that journeys through life one tale at a time. Luck, or fortune, is one of those things we seem to hear about a lot, but that no one can really define. Merriam-Webster defines luck as a force that brings good fortune, or adversity. It also defines luck as the events or circumstances that operate for or against an individual. Since we don't want to focus on bad luck, let's go with the first definition and focus on good fortune. But what exactly is good fortune? Is fortune something that just happens? Are those events or circumstances within our control or out of it? How can we look for fortune when we don't even have a firm grasp on what it really is? Is it when the stars align or the gods look down on us favorably? Can you make it happen? Is it just a matter of, as one saying suggests, opportunity and preparation meeting up? Is it something that happens, as another saying suggests, just to the brave? If anyone truly knew, they could write a book and sell 10 million copies overnight. But regardless of what fortune is, there are ways to get its attention, and that's the subject of today's episode that I've titled, Fortune Favors the Diligent. We all know someone, or have at least heard of someone, who seemed to catch a break and then make it big or accumulate a fortune, or something like that. We then look at ourselves and wonder, why not me? Why did so-and-so get the big break while I didn't? I can't answer that question directly, but I can offer this. Pablo Picasso once said, "Inspiration does exist, but it must find you working." Tweak that just a bit and you get, fortune does exist, but it must find you working. And therein lies the secret to getting lucky. Getting lucky, or having good fortune, isn't new. Stories about it go back hundreds, even thousands of years, and can be found in cultures around the world. This particular story and version, retold by the Brothers Grimm over 200 years ago, perfectly captures the concept of today's episode and is known worldwide as The Elves and the Shoemaker. There was once a shoemaker who worked very hard and was very honest, but still he could not earn enough to live upon, and at last all he had in the world was gone, except just leather enough to make one pair of shoes. Then he cut them all ready to make up the next day, meaning to get up early in the morning to work. His conscience was clear and his heart light amidst all his troubles, so he went peaceably to bed, left all his cares to heaven, and fell asleep. In the morning, after he had said his prayers, he set himself down to his work, when, to his great wonder, there stood the shoes already made upon the table. The good man knew not what to say or think of this strange event. He looked at the workmanship. There was not one false stitch in the whole job, and all was so neat and true that it was a complete masterpiece. That same day, a customer came in, and the shoes pleased him so well that he willingly paid a price higher than usual for them, and the poor shoemaker, with the money, bought leather enough to make 2 pairs more. In the evening, he cut out the work and went to bed early, that he might get up and begin betimes next day. But he was saved all the trouble, for when he got up in the morning, the work was finished ready to his hand. Presently, in came buyers, who paid him handsomely for his goods, so that he bought leather enough for 4 pairs more. He cut out the work again overnight, and found it finished in the morning as before. And so it went on for some time. What was got ready in the evening was always done by daybreak, and the good man soon became thriving and prosperous again. One evening about Christmas time, as he and his wife were sitting over the fire chatting together, he said to her, "I should like to sit up and watch tonight, that we may see who it is that comes and does my work for me." The wife liked the thought, so they left the light burning and hid themselves in the corner of the room behind a curtain that was hung up there, and watched what should happen. As soon as it was midnight, there came two little naked dwarfs, and they sat themselves upon the shoemaker's bench, took up all the work that was cut out, and began to ply with their little fingers, stitching and wrapping and tapping away at such a rate that the shoemaker was all amazement and could not take his eyes off for a moment. And on they went till the job was quite finished and the shoes stood ready for use upon the table. This was long before daybreak, and then they bustled away as quick as lightning. The next day, the wife said to the shoemaker, "These little wights have made us rich, and we ought to be thankful to them and do them a good office in return. I am quite vexed to see them run about as they do. They have nothing upon their backs to keep off the cold. I'll tell you what, I will make each of them a shirt and a coat and waistcoat and a pair of pantaloons into the bargain. Do you make each of them a little pair of shoes." The thought pleased the good shoemaker very much, and one evening, when all the things were ready, they laid them on the table instead of the work that they used to cut out, and they then went and hid themselves to watch what the little elves would do. About midnight they came in and were going to sit down to their work as usual, but when they saw the clothes lying for them, they laughed and were greatly delighted. Then they dressed themselves in the twinkling of an eye, and danced and capered and sprang about as merry as could be, till at last they danced out of the door over the green, and the shoemaker saw them no more. But everything went well with him from that time forward, as long as he lived. It's a wonderful and cute story that mostly stands on its own, but let's wrap up this episode with 3 important points to keep in mind about fortune and diligence. First, if you look at the beginning of the tale, we find the shoemaker who has fallen on hard times. There's no complaint about the quality of his work, his prices, or whatever. In fact, we are told that his conscience was clear. This is a lesson to all of us about just putting in the time and hours. Yes, bad things can still happen, but if you're going about things diligently and the right way, things will turn around. And they did. Just when it seemed that the shoemaker was all but done, he was rewarded. But that's not all. There are a couple others in this story who are also diligent in their work, and that's the very elves, or dwarfs, who helped the shoemaker. Remember that in the story, we are told that their work on the shoemaker's shoes went on for some time. This wasn't a day or even a week, but perhaps months. What if they had quit? What if they had stopped doing their work as well as they could have? Fortunately for them, they didn't, and in return, they were also rewarded. As an aside, when you think about European folk tales, often these magical helpers are bound to certain duties until they have been rewarded or thanked in some way. The 2 elves might have been stuck making shoes for the rest of their lives, or at least the rest of the shoemaker's life, had they not been diligent and therefore appropriately thanked, freeing them from their nightly duties. And what was the result of all of this? Well, that brings us to our 3rd point. Despite the loss of the elves, the shoemaker's business continued to thrive for as long as he lived. Well, he was just fortunate. Actually, no. If you think back on the story, even while the elves were helping him, the shoemaker remained conscientious in his work. The elves never cut out the leather for the shoes, only sewed it up. The shoemaker remained hard-working throughout, even as his fortunes changed. And that's the real takeaway from this tale. Are things rough right now? Keep going at it in the right way. Are things going great? Keep going at it in the right way. Someone is looking at you thinking how lucky you are, or will be. And you will be. But you know it wasn't because you wished on a falling star. It was because you kept going. Keep it up.